Administrator, we're going to be looking at creating a risk based on responses. There are two schools of thought in creating risk. One, risks can be more strategic. Oftentimes they should be. They should be a more aggregate risk where control deficiencies and threats are connected to that risk. In other organizations, they choose to create risks based on simply the deficiencies and vulnerabilities that have been identified. So today we'll be focusing on the latter use case, creating a risk based on the control deficiencies and or vulnerabilities related to those. So what we'll do is click on the CIS assessment. I'll go to my risks, and now this is a risk view just of the CIS assessment. If we want to look at the aggregate risks across our entire company, we would then look at the risk register, which is the home view of all risks across the organization managed in TrustMAPP. Okay, so from here we can see we've got risks assigned. We have a description which actually include the MITRE attack. And before we navigate back to the screen, I'm going to go to our responses. And I have an item here, control deficiency is at a 1. If you've watched any of the previous videos, you'll see that you can sort by the score. You can search, keyword search as well. So let's take a look at assets and identify what controls we might have related to assets, which are at the top here. So let's take a look at this first one and create a risk related to the deficiency we've identified here. So I go to the 3 dots on the right, expand the menu, and select create a risk. What this does is it brings over the ID of this control and then the name of the control itself. We can always change this, but for today's purposes, I'm going to leave that just as it is. Then I can indicate what risk category this belongs to. We can customize these risk categories in our system configuration menu option, which is not in scope for this video. But for the risk category of this risk, let's take a look at and call it regulatory noncompliance. And the risk source was from a controls assessment. The business objective, let's see, tie it to our improve customer engagement. Not having visibility and properly configured assets can impact certainly that business objective. And we can also assign it to different groups as well. So let's assign it to our IT infrastructure group. Now, if I go to the right-hand side here, I am going to select the group this is a CIS V8 with the implementation groups. I'll select IG1, inventory and control of enterprise assets. What this has done is brought over the MITRE attack technique, T1200. It's a very common technique that applies to many different deficiencies. What this also did is it will provide mitigating factors as well. So what we're looking at now is we're creating a risk based on a control deficiency associated with a risk category, a source of the risk, business objective, and the group that it's assigned to. Now, what we want to do is we'll keep the risk status open. We want to mitigate this risk. We'll indicate that it is significant and likely. Now, my rating based on my custom risk matrix over here indicates this should be a medium. If I select a major, it's going to bump this up to a high. And you do have the ability, there's a link right here and a link at the top of the screen to configure your risk matrix to meet your risk appetite for your organization. I then can select an individual that I will assign the risk to. And if there's, let's say this person is the director of infrastructure, I can indicate or assign a potential loss description. We have our mitigating factors based on the MITRE attack mapping. Now I'll go ahead and save that risk. And that will enter another risk line item in our risk register here. And what we can see from this view is everything we've added. We've got 7 controls or attributes, and we see the risk is a medium overall rating. From this point, I can also add an issue if I care to. So I could add this issue and assign that issue to an individual that needs to be assigned to mitigate this risk that we've identified. And let's assign it to the owner of the risk. We can have a validator as well. Let's say Sanjay. Just like creating a task, only this is related to a risk. We save it, and that individual, John Smith, will be notified by email through TrustMAPP that they have a new risk issue assigned to them that requires investigation and correction. Thank you for viewing this video tutorial on creating a risk in TrustMAPP.